G'day guys, Googs here with the Drunk Philosopher. After a couple of days of thinking about it and seeing what's what and doing a bit of revision over history, in part thanks to my son, and thank you son if you're watching this, appreciate it. This Greta Thunberg, everyone's going off, Thunberg or whatever her name is, and no disrespect, it's just Swedish names are hard to pronounce for me. Got all the dots all over the O's and stuff, and I don't know what that means. I'm afraid I'm an Aussie. But she is the latest in a long line of young people to speak at a UN climate convention. The first one, I believe, was in Rio in 1992, and it was pretty much the same speech. It wasn't as emotional, but it was pretty much, me and my friends, we have to live in this world in a few years' time, and it's all going to be hell, and you guys are doing nothing, and money talks, and rah, 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 rah. And I don't mean to sound like I'm not worried about the state of plastics in the ocean and alternate power sources and things like this. Of course I am. If you watched my previous videos, you'll realise that. But she's the latest in a long line. Every 3 or 4 years, they pull out another young person to talk about climate change. And the reason they pull out a young person and not a climatologist or a meteorologist or a geologist or anybody who actually knows what's going on as far as the Earth is concerned is because young people pull heartstrings, especially a young lady, a 16-year-old lady. And let's face it, she does not look 16. And nothing against you, Greta. And this isn't a sexist, this is just an observation of an older person going, wow, you look maybe 12, 13. And it pulls the heartstrings, okay? Because, young person and she's passionate and, but the UN is a paper tiger. And this is what I really want people to understand when they say, UN this, UN that. No, UN means nothing. I'll give you an example. In the late 90s, early 2000s, Japan was whaling in the Southern Ocean. Part of the Southern Ocean is under Australian territory. So they were coming into our territory, and we actually had the Navy, actually go to a few of these places and bugger off, mate. So we went to the UN and said, look, we need to do something about Japan. And the UN put in a convention or some crap like that saying, Japan, stop doing this. And the Japanese went, what are you going to do about it? You haven't got an army. You can't stop us. We're just going to fish for whale, for scientific research. Yeah, a bit of the old chopsticks in the sushi, I reckon. But scientific research. The UN can't do anything. The UN can suggest things. It's essentially a mediating body mediated by the leaders of the world. It isn't a third extra party. Every single major member of the UN is a politician from a country. All right? Which means that they don't even work as mediators. They work for their own best interests of their countries and themselves. So everyone's getting worked up at a tizzy. We need to do something. The UN's going, we need to do something. And they don't care. They're politicians. Why would they give a fuck? And the news cycle moves on. And here you go, Greta. Here's something that entirety of Europe and America, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and of course the UK are going to be involved in all this next month in October. Because 31st of October, of course, is Brexit Day. And everyone's going to have their eyes focused on that. I reckon probably by the 15th or the 16th, the news cycle is probably going to move away from Trump, thank fuck, and probably going to move on to Boris and his mob. I'm sure it'll be just as funny. The reactions from both sides. So, Greta, you've done your political stunt, and I don't even know. Here's the thing that gets me with Greta. I'm very sure she's honest. She feels exactly what she says. I don't get a sense that she's, there's subterfuge there. Right? And I mean, I'm not an expert on body language or whatever, but I honestly believe this is what Greta thinks and she understands of the world. But Greta, mate, you're being used. You would be better off once you're 18 or whatever the coming of age is for your country in Sweden. Probably 18, pretty much 18 or 21 everywhere else in the world. And tell all these other people to sod off. And if this is something you truly believe in, whether I agree with you or not is not the point, or anyone agrees with you or not is not the point, and actually set up a foundation. All right? Set up a foundation. Not necessarily a political movement, but a foundation, and talk to the middle of the road people around the world. All right? Because that's where your change is. That's where your revolution is. Your revolution isn't at the top with the UN and the fat cats. That's not where your revolution is if you want one. Okay? Your revolution is on the ground. And you've got to learn to talk to common people in a common parlance. I'm not saying you can't. But that's the way I'd do it if I was you, because going to the UN, man, that is literally just a political trick. And like all the young people before you, it's going to prove nothing. You know, the media cycle moves on. And the only reason you've kept so much attention is because you've become such a controversial figure. But if you truly believe in what you believe in, once again, doesn't matter whether I agree with you or not, or anyone else does, set yourself up a foundation. When you get old enough, do your thing. Anyway, I'm Nathan Googs Fletcher, and I'll catch you down the road. Uru. Be good.